When clients finish their initial engagement with us, which ends with an incredible strategic planning retreat, between 80 and 90% continue on with us. These are people who are genuinely turning a corner. They've done real work to get clear. And the first quarter after that retreat follows a pattern we see consistently. And that's what this episode is about. I hope it's useful for you too, wherever you are. Welcome to the Law Firm Owner Podcast, powered by Velocity Work. This is the work that creates velocity. Welcome back to the Law Firm Owner Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Here is something I want you to sit with before we get into the episode. There's a moment, maybe you've lived it, where you've come out of a planning retreat or a really good strategy session or a conversation where things finally clicked. You leave with clarity. You leave with alignment. You leave with energy, and you haven't felt in months. And everyone on the team feels it too. And then a few weeks pass. It feels harder than before, not easier. The team is still running the same patterns. The workload hasn't let up. There are new expectations now, but the systems to support them aren't there yet. You're holding two realities at once. The business you said you were building and the business that still has to show up and function every single day. And here's where a lot of owners go wrong. They read that discomfort as a signal that something is not going well, something is broken, that the plan isn't working, that maybe the reset wasn't real. This episode is about exactly why that's backwards. The discomfort you feel in the first quarter after a reset is not a sign that something is wrong. It's the cost of something that is finally moving. And if you understand why it feels heavy and what to do with it, you can stay with the work long enough to actually let it land. I want you to think about a freight train. A freight train at a dead stop does not move easily. It has mass. It has inertia. It has been sitting still or moving in one direction for a long time. And when you ask it to go somewhere new, the resistance is real. You put force into it, and at first it barely moves. And you might wonder if anything is happening at all. But that's not because the effort isn't working. It's because the object is heavy. Your business is the same. When you've been operating a certain way for years, you've built up mass, years of habits, unspoken norms about how things get done, roles that have drifted, tolerances that have accumulated, inefficiencies nobody tackled, decisions that kept getting deferred, the founder carrying more than they should because that was just easier than fixing the real problem. That is all real weight. So when you come out of a reset and ask the business to operate differently, you're not pushing a small change, you're pushing all of that at once. And the quarter feels heavy because it is heavy. The train hasn't failed to move. It's just expensive to get it moving. Now, strategy exposes reality. Here is the first reason implementation feels so hard early on. Strategy creates visibility before it creates ease. Before a reset, things can feel messy, but it's kind of a manageable fog. Nobody has language for the specific problems. There are no real targets. There's no real gap to measure. There's no structure. There's no way to see what's actually missing. And after a reset, that fog starts to lift. And what gets exposed oftentimes isn't pretty. Underperformance that was hiding under the chaos becomes visible. Role confusion that everyone had quietly worked around becomes visible. The fact that senior people are doing work that they shouldn't be doing, visible. Founders overfunctioning, visible. Financial distortion, capacity problems, decisions that nobody has actually been owning. All of it becomes visible. And it can feel like things got worse, but they didn't get worse. They got more honest. You didn't create those problems in the first quarter. You exposed them in the first quarter after this reset. And there's a real difference. The trap is misreading that discomfort as evidence that the new plan is wrong when it's really just what truth feels like after a long stretch of operating in fog. The reset didn't invent the dysfunction. It revealed the dysfunction. So expectations rise before capacity catches up. Expectations rise because of the clarity that you've gotten during your reset. In my case, what I'm talking about is the strategic planning retreats that we lead for clients. So here's what happens. Your expectations rise because of the clarity before your capacity actually catches up. So there's this second layer, and one where real strain lives. When you reset the business, the things that change first are your standards, the goals, the conversations you're willing to have, the level of clarity that you're demanding. Those shift almost immediately. What doesn't shift immediately? Everything that needs to support them. Hiring takes time. Onboarding takes time. Getting people comfortable with new processes, new accountability structures, new ways of operating. That takes repetition and patience. There's a build there. Habits don't change in a month. Behavior doesn't change in a month. Not that it can't, but it's not easy to create new normals. Delegation patterns don't change in a month. Team confidence also won't flip in a month. So there is a gap. You are asking yourself and people around you to perform at a higher standard before the infrastructure exists to support that standard, before it becomes your new normal, which will support the standard. Everyone can feel the mismatch, and it creates friction, even when the direction is right. And as the founder or leader, you are often carrying both worlds at once. The old business that still has to run, clients, delivery, staffing, issues, fires, and the new business that you're trying to build, processes, accountability, clearer leadership, more mature systems. You are rebuilding the plane while flying it. And that is hard. Not because you're doing it wrong, because it's inherently hard. You are carrying the cost of implementation before the benefits of implementation have arrived. That's the first quarter. That's why it feels brutal. If you've been a longtime listener, you probably remember that one of my favorite quotes is, "Discomfort is the currency for your dreams." So let's talk about what the discomfort actually is. Most owners I work with, they want a cleaner business. They want a more mature team. They want clearer accountability, less chaos, better numbers, more capacity, less of their personal time consumed by problems that really shouldn't require them. But what they often underestimate is the cost of the transition, the hard conversations that are required, the identity shift involved in leading differently, the emotional steadiness that's required when the team is resistant, or when results lag behind, take a little time, or when you're seeing how much you have been tolerating for too long. And this isn't about glorifying pain and suffering. Pain is not automatically useful, but growth does have a cost. Maturity has a cost. Structure has a cost. And much of that cost shows up first as discomfort. It's when you confront underperformance. That's uncomfortable. Changing roles, asking more of people, or just different things of people. Letting go of things that you shouldn't be holding. Uncomfortable. Hearing resistance. Sitting with the fact that relief hasn't arrived yet. As much as you wish that it would, it hasn't arrived yet. Seeing clearly how much you have tolerated, which I mentioned earlier. Discomfort is the currency of your next level. You do not get a better business through comfort. The business you say you want usually costs more discomfort than you expect. And your willingness to stay steady inside of that discomfort, that's what the next level actually requires. I'll tell you about a client that I recently had this conversation with. I have this conversation every time we have a new client come on. We do foundation, which is that short initial engagement. We end with a strategic planning retreat. We decide mutually it feels like a great fit to continue working together. And so they go through their next 90 days and they have strategic priorities. They have, what are often called rocks. They have goals. The rocks, though, are the thing, right? Your strategic priorities, what you're supposed to execute on, that is the thing. That is what our conversations are about between the quarters. We want to know status. Progress needs to continue to be made. And usually those that is the hardest quarter. So this conversation is not new to me. I have this conversation all the time with newer clients that come in, and I tell them, hey, listen, this quarter felt heavy. I know that. They don't all feel this way. You are trying to create motion with a freight train that is sitting still, and that is hard. You will start to feel momentum. You will start to feel the impact and the benefits of the rocks that you're putting into place. But this is how it feels at the beginning, always. And knowing that brings them comfort. And that's the main reason I wanted to do this episode, is because it's really important that you can see where you are in the scope of things. And maybe quarter two will also feel a little hard after their retreat, where they get all this clarity and they get organized and they know what they need to execute on and all that. Then it starts to lighten. It doesn't mean that every quarter is easy at all, but there's nothing like the first quarter, because the lift that you are doing while you are operating the old way, and you've kind of buried yourself in that, but you really want to make headway and get yourself out of that, it's a lot. Certain people decide to step aside. They decide to escape that discomfort, and it is extremely uncomfortable. So the client that I was just most recently talking to about this, they knocked it out of the park. They had very big initiatives this quarter that took a lot of courage and guts, which I guess is the same thing. And they executed. They felt the discomfort and they did it anyway. They felt the fear and they did it anyway. They're at the end of that first quarter, and they have shifted their firm. Their firm will never be the same again because of what they did this quarter. So now, as heavy as it was for them, and they are tired, but they are proud. They're so proud of themselves, and they should be, because now they're on a different track. The freight train is moving, and now it's not going to be as hard in the future. Momentum will happen easier because of the work that they just did. Now, how do you know if the discomfort that you are feeling, let's say you have had a bit of a reset and you get moving, but the discomfort is getting so great that you're actually wondering if it's worth it anymore? Is something going wrong? Do I need to take a step back? Do I need to relieve the pressure here? How do you know that the discomfort and that feeling is productive, or if something is really off? And so here's the signs that the pain is productive. Number one, conversations are clearer than they were. This is something that naturally tends to happen. And even if they are uncomfortable conversations, they are clearer. That is a sign that your discomfort is productive. Now, your priorities are more narrow. There is constraint. That is a sign that you are doing something right. Stay with that. Ownership is more defined. And I don't mean ownership for you as the owner. I mean ownership within roles and responsibilities in the firm. If it's more defined for each role, that is good. And if it's very uncomfortable to put that forward or to get that organized, that is discomfort you want to stay with. If decisions are actually getting made, meaning you keep seeing issues, but in the past, maybe no decisions were made, but you actually are making decisions more quickly, that's a good sign that if that's discomfort, you need to stick with that, keep moving. If your hiring is more intentional, it's painful for whatever reason, it's different and it's painful, but it's more intentional, that's productive discomfort. Performance is more measurable. Leaders are less confused about what the real problems are. The business might still feel clunky, but there is evidence of movement. Not just emotion, but actual signal. Now, here's what to watch for on the other side. So you're experiencing a lot of discomfort, and no one can articulate what success looks like right now. If no one can articulate what success looks like, you need to push pause. If standards keep shifting week to week, no, I don't know what kind of discomfort you're experiencing, but if that is happening, you need to step back. If there's no rhythm of follow-up or consistency with execution on something, if ownership, and again, I mean ownership within roles and responsibilities, if it's still fuzzy, no, that I don't care what kind of discomfort you're experiencing, that should be a signal to you that something needs to be reworked. The same issue keeps surfacing over and over and over again, and no decisions get made. I sort of mentioned the flip side of this earlier. Everything feels intense, but nothing is actually getting clearer. real progress isn't being made. Even if you can't feel the effects of the real progress, you just can see that I'm not clearer. Things are moving too slow in terms of decision making. It's like you're kind of stuck in this world. You don't believe, when you really ask yourself the question, do you believe that you are making progress, that you are creating clarity, that you're building in things to create more visibility, easier path to making great decisions, etc. So the goal isn't just hard equals good. The goal is, does the discomfort that you experience as you execute create clarity? Does it create cleaner decisions? Does it create stronger systems? If yes, you are on the right track. Pain is not proof that you're on the right track, but if the pain is producing signal and movement, it's executing on what you are clear about, you are exactly in the stretch that leads somewhere. So how does momentum actually get built? This is where I see a lot of owners trip up after a reset, because like I was telling you about that client a moment ago, and I have plenty of clients that first quarter is hard and they're so proud at the end of it. And they really did stay focused. They really did honor their plans. Not everybody does. And where I see people get tripped up, it's because the energy right after a good planning session, the inspiration, the conviction, that feeling that things are finally going to change, that energy is meaningful and it matters, but it is not momentum. Reset energy that you feel, that feeling you get after the clarity session, that's emotional. Momentum is operational. Momentum comes from what gets done after the retreat. It comes from visible proof of you making the reset, the clarity, come to life. Goals that exist and are actually tracked. Accountability that's clearer today than it was 6 weeks ago. Someone was hired. A process was documented. A conversation that used to get avoided, it happened. Reporting improved. Decisions that used to float are now landing. This is where momentum starts to build. And momentum requires narrowing. I mentioned this earlier. I'm going to mention it again here. Constraint. After a reset, there is a natural pull to fix everything or to go at everything. At any given point, there are so many things that we could do, should do in our businesses that we want to get to. But to touch all the problems at once or to go for more than really what you can handle, that impulse will kill your momentum, which is why here at Velocity Work, when we are working with clients, they leave with a few set strategic priorities for the quarter, because momentum needs a few clear priorities and visible wins. Too many simultaneous objectives dilute your execution. Momentum is built through concentrated execution, not distributed effort, not your effort and attention that's watered down among many things. It also requires a rhythm. There needs to be follow-up calls. There needs to be check-ins. You have to keep the things that are important top of mind because, life and work will pull. There's so many things vying for your attention. You will drift from the focus that you did have when you were feeling what you were feeling after that clarity reset. Sometimes you'll revisit commitments from before. You'll adjust based on what's happening in front of you. You'll make decisions to pivot or to do something different. And you should not. You should stay the course. You constrain down your focus. This concentrated focus is what will produce what you are looking for. A reset will likely spark motion. It will. You'll probably go back and you'll do something right away. There is an initial lift, but then that rhythm is what keeps the train moving. And by rhythm, I mean a rhythm and a cadence of focus on the right things consistently. You don't have all day, every day to focus on these things, but you can set aside a bit of time on a rhythm, on a cadence, and that will keep the train moving. Momentum often feels boring before it feels exciting. People imagine momentum as this exhilarating, energizing thing, and often it feels repetitive, structured, less chaotic, less emotional. And that's not a lack of momentum. That's maturity. That's what a business actually looks like when it's operating well. So the exciting feeling that you're looking for, that you think momentum is, the excitement is on the other side of the momentum that you create. You have to create the momentum, and the creation of that momentum is not exhilarating very often, but the rewards on the other side of it, that's what people are looking for, but you only get there if you stay the course. Okay, so what do you actually do in that first quarter after you have your reset? What does this mean practically? Well, number one, expect the heaviness. Don't treat it as a shocking failure when that first quarter feels hard. Normalize it in advance with yourself, with your team. This may feel harder before it feels easier. That's not a problem. That's the freight train beginning to move. Stay with the plan long enough to learn from it. Execute fully. Don't move goalposts. Don't abandon a stated initiative or a project. Finish it. Okay, so now we've talked about the first quarter being uniquely heavy, and sometimes that carries into a second quarter, which I mentioned. But then at that point, the train has picked up a bit of speed. This is where inertia is working in your favor. What I'm not implying is that, and I mentioned this earlier, I just want to say it again. What I'm not implying is that every quarter after that first one, maybe the second one, is going to be easy. Some quarters are going to be harder than others. That is part of the journey, building and growing your firm. But there is nothing like that first quarter. The first quarter, yes, is often uniquely heavy, but that doesn't mean that every quarter should feel this way. So knowing that, it should give you comfort that there's light at the end of this tunnel. Put your head down, stay focused, get it done. No matter how bad you don't want to have the conversations you need to have, no matter how lost you are on where to start with the specific thing that you're supposed to put together, whether that's a process or a hiring guide or whatever, right? The work is real. And if the reset was grounded and the plan is sound, you should start to see things improve over time, but you have to do it. You have to experience the discomfort to do it. And with that, you will have better visibility. You will have stronger habits. You will have less confusion. The founder improvising less, more ownership spread across team. You'll have more confidence. If none of that is coming into view after sustained effort, something needs rethinking. Maybe it's the wrong process, the wrong structure, who knows? But don't stop early. Use the discomfort, learn from the discomfort. Build through the discomfort. What you're actually looking for is signs that the freight train is no longer at a dead stop. So yes, at the start, the effort feels disproportionate. The movement feels small. The resistance feels heavy. And it's easy to look at that and think that nothing is happening. But that's not what nothing looks like. That's what the beginning of momentum looks like. When the thing that you're moving is genuinely heavy. The first quarter may feel brutal, not because you're failing, but because you're finally moving something that has been sitting still for a long time. That discomfort is not a sign that something's wrong. It is the currency of your next level. Stay with it, keep the rhythm, and let your results compound. That is how momentum is built. If you're watching this on YouTube, please give us a like and a subscribe. Every single one of these things helps the podcast in a big way. And we give away some pretty great free resources that help law firm owners who aren't clients learn some of the core principles that we use in our framework. An example is a producer calculator, which lets you put in your producer's salary and production numbers to give you a sense for how healthy your firm is and how your team is performing. Head over to velocitywork.com to try it out. Thank you for listening to the Law Firm Owner Podcast. If you're ready to get clearer on your vision, data, and mindset, then head over to velocitywork.com where you can plug in to quarterly strategic planning with accountability and coaching in between. This is the work that creates velocity.